Hey sewing friends, today I'm here to talk about some fall trends that are really inspiring my sewing plans at the moment. So I'm really excited to kind of share what is resonating with me and how I will be translating that into like my own search for fabrics and patterns and to see how I can really incorporate that into my wardrobe in a practical way that actually works for my personal style that I can keep with me like on the long term. So if you didn't know this about me, I am a freelance marketer for a few sewing businesses, and one of my jobs for those businesses is to be on like trend watch and to look at the ways that we see what's not only on like the high street and the runway, but also like in trends in music and trends in what's going on in museums, things that are being highlighted like more broader culturally. I used to be someone that was really into like only sewing or buying like timeless items. And I found that doing this for work and actually like incorporating trends into my style has really like unlocked so much for me. Instead of being limited by what is timeless and trying to commit to things for a very, very long period of time at kind of what I was feeling like at the expense of my own personal expression. And what I've actually found like the opposite, like as I leaned into these temporary things, I was finding that like they were the ones that I was more emotionally resonating with. And some of these trends I've been wearing for like the last 5 years and have felt more like myself than I ever did trying to lean into classic, timeless basics. So I feel like in the sewing realm, we're kind of pitted against this like idea of sustainability and timelessness. But for me, so much more like freedom came when I was able to embrace that like my body's going to change, my taste is going to change, and I still want to be as sustainable as I can be and not just making things for one season or for one event, but boxing myself into something I'm going to wear for a lifetime just like wasn't realistic. And I feel like I've gotten so much more open with personal expression than I ever was able to. And part of that is because I started incorporating trend inspiration. So when I'm doing these like trend translations for how to break down a trend that we're seeing out in like ready to wear into like how we would sew it up at home, the three things that I really look at are, for one, is silhouette. So that's going to be like what garment types, what are the shapes, how do these garments move? So that is number one. Number two is fabrication. So that's going to be looking at, yeah, color, print, texture. Again, movement is kind of one that like overlaps a little bit between silhouette and fabrication, but definitely something to consider there as well. And then number three is styling. So how do these work together as an outfit? Does it present like a specific aesthetic that you could lean in or lean out of and see how that is like buildable among personal style? So those are the three things that I always look at: silhouette, fabrication, and styling. So that is what I've picked a couple categories to talk about today for what I am really inspired by at the moment. First up in the silhouette category would be a vintage inspired or heritage blouse. So we're really looking at details and silhouettes inspired by like the Victorian era, the Edwardian era, lots of little beautiful details and really like impeccable construction. So we're thinking like lace inserts, ruffle details, pin tucks, pretty much like whatever you can layer in there for that really like heirloom vibe, which I think checks a lot of my boxes. I just think they are so, so beautiful and really could be very wearable, either styled up in full like historical garment vibes, which is probably not my thing, but I think paired with just like very simple jeans or like a little plaid skirt could go a lot of directions, which I think would be really fun to play with style wise. So some patterns that are kind of on my radar for this, I think Seamwork has a ton. You could just go to like their full pattern listing, search for woven blouses, and Like there's the Dara with the lace inserts. The Danielle has this beautiful, a much like lower neck than would kind of fit with the like historical vibe, but it has this really beautiful ruffle at the front. There is the Meadow with this really beautiful like ruffle collar that is a bit more high neck. There's the Aims that has this like bib and lots of gathering, very like billowy and floaty. Could even fit for like Medievalcore, which we will talk about in a bit. Um, Lots of really cool options there. Another favorite of mine is the Forget-me-not Helmi blouse that I have made several times. I really, really love that one. I'm excited to do the ruffle color, perhaps. I've always done the Peter Pan, but we'll see. And then lastly, one that's on my radar is one that is in testing to be expanded into their full size range, which is new for Stitch Maiden patterns. So always really happy to see another pattern company looking to expand their size range, and they're starting with this really beautiful blouse. So that one is also on my radar. Now, to go the like really historical route, I think like cotton gauze, silks, those would definitely be on that side of things, if you really wanted to stick true to that as a full garment type. I don't necessarily think that I will. I think I might incorporate like prints and like probably use viscose fabric, which is more practical for me for layering, but definitely keeping those like details in mind with the silhouette and the construction. The second garment type that has me very inspired right now is the statement skirt. And I did a whole video on my ideas for that last week, so I will just like put that, a link to that up in there. I want to say the two kind of variations that we're seeing is like one that has a lot of details, is definitely more on the like boho side with lots of movement and flowy fabrics, maybe some like ruffles or gathered tiers, those kinds of elements. And then on the other side is like straight up like mermaid. So very, very different, or either like mermaid or very like tight structured pencil skirts. Pencil skirts are absolutely not for me. I'm not into that. But the mermaid definitely like has my eye. So I talked a little bit about the True Bias Salida skirt being a nice adaptation of that, something that is a little bit more wearable for every day. I personally wouldn't want to wear like a super fitted, form-fitting kind of trumpet style skirt in the day to day, but the Salida is like a little bit softer, still has that really nice bell shape with the gores, but will have like a little bit more movement to it. It's a little bit more relaxed. And then again, on that like flowier boho maxi skirt style, so many beautiful options. I mentioned the Henrietta from Spaghetti Western. There's also the Leighton from Petite Stichery with these really cool like wave panels into it. I really like that kind of unexpected seam lines, different detail kind of vibes for this one. So definitely looking at making some kind of statement skirt. So moving into fabrication, the first subcategory we always look at is color. And fall, I will say, like, it really kind of has more than any of the other seasons, like sort of its own set color palette that even when you see these colors in shops in other seasons, you're like, oh, what a beautiful fall toned sweater, or what a beautiful fall toned trouser, like basically anything that is an autumn leaf or like a muted sunset color kind of falls into this category. Everything from like, yeah, olive green to like brighter leaf green. Then we get like yellow and orange, kind of usually as interpreted as like ochre, mustard into like rusty brown tones. What we are seeing that's a little bit different this season is adding in kind of that tail end. If you think about like the falling leaf at the end, like there is more purple and brown toward the end of autumn, and getting into winter. A lot of leaves like will skip red and just go like kind of a purple tone. So getting to see those kinds of maroons, burgundies, like wine, merlot kind of color frame in there, I'm really excited about, because those are colors that I absolutely love and wear, yeah, whether they're on trend or not. So they just happen to resonate with me. And then the last one that I am kind of latching onto for this year, at least, is the like chocolate brown trend, which is not new to fall by any means, but it is one that like I wouldn't have really picked up on as like considered it a neutral for me because I tend to go for more like ivory camel navy, but bringing like chocolate brown in is like, oh, that's a really nice warm neutral that works really well with the other colors in my wardrobe that I just hadn't really considered until I started seeing it everywhere. So the next category, I actually went and pulled some fabrics from my stash because texture is absolutely my favorite aspect of fabrication to like hone in on. Now for fall, we definitely are seeing the return of like corduroy, suede, leather, yeah, velvet, these really like rich, warm wool types that, yeah, are really great for transitioning into the winter. But there's also been like more of an emphasis also on textured tops. So for knits, like pointel jersey is a really nice way to add some texture into like your everyday basics for a wardrobe. I don't happen to have any in my stash right now, but I did pull a few wovens that I am really into right now. So yeah, this one, like I could use this for a Victorian blouse in burgundy with texture and be like fully on trend. If I was really wanting to like check all the boxes, that would be really perfect. Yeah, it's a lightweight cotton with this like really yummy Swiss dot, raised dot texture on it. So that one is beautiful. I have this one here, which is a medium weight cotton jacquard with kind of like a, almost like a checker weave to it, but like in different scales, kind of creating this like stripe within the fabric, even though it's all monotone. So I really, really love that one. I actually talked about a couple in my last video. These two right here. I'll just grab them because they're gorgeous. Like what a beautiful stack, this whole bit. So this is a Fabulism, also a cotton jacquard with these little hearts that are woven into them. This one has a like mini window pane weave. So like any of these would be really great options. Again, this like really plays to what I already really love. So it's kind of nice to see that like in the spotlight. So those are my like general textured woven favorites. The other category of texture that I'm definitely going to be leaning into this season is with sheers. So I pulled a couple from my stash to share. So this one is a lightweight cotton with, yeah, these kind of, again, like little mini window pane with different like levels of opacity to them, which I think is really cool visually. Again, it's a really nice texture, like on the skin to feel. I am definitely like a sensory seeking person, and so to have something more than just like a plain weave to wear, like feels really good for me. So that's one. And then this one I picked up recently is actually like a lingerie fabric. So it's a knit, but I think this would also be really cool to do a, like, I think this is the front. Is it? I'm not sure. There is like a right and wrong side to this one. One is like blacker than the other side. The other ones are like a bit more muted. But like I think to do like a turtleneck in this would be so cool with like a little lettuce hem, because these like inserts are definitely giving me that like Victorian Edwardian inspiration, even though obviously they would not have this like synthetic knit fabric. Um, but I think would be really, really cool as like a layering piece. So I'm very excited about incorporating lots of texture into my fall plans. The last aspect of fabrication that we're going to look at for today would be like print or motif. And I will be honest, a lot of the like newer trends that are specific to this year didn't really resonate with me so much. I mean, like I love a plaid, like a classic, gingham, etc., which are still very much the thing. I love a moody floral that always comes kind of into play as we move toward winter. Like a dark background floral fabric is definitely my jam. But a lot of the other ones, like some of them were just kind of like lukewarm for me. Like if I come across a paisley or like a geometric print, like maybe, but I'm not going to go out and like prioritize that necessarily. The one that did land with me was animals print. Now, not animal print, which is definitely still a very big trend happening. Um, but rather not like leopard print, but like a print of leopards as the motif would be more my jam. So I pulled 3 of them from my stash. I have like a bunch more, but these are ones that I could definitely see sewing up for this season. So first I have a viscose chiffon with these little house cats on them. I think it's really fun and witchy. It definitely goes into like the sheer trend as it is a chiffon. I can't quite show you. I don't want to like undo this one because it's really hard to fold, but you can kind of see it's got a lot of movement, not a ton of opacity. So it would be really nice as like a layering piece, I think. So that is one that I really, really love and would be super perfect. This one leans into kind of like the overall Western trend that we have been in for an age, and yeah, some horse girl elements. This is a very bright color palette though, which I think is not really going to match a lot of what I'm going for fall, but it is really beautiful Cloud 9 fabric from a couple years ago. And then if you watched my fabric haul a couple weeks ago, you will recognize these kitties, which this is another one that would hit like so many trends if I were going to prioritize it, because it is a cotton Dobby with this really gorgeous texture in it. It is the bright kind of Bartlett green, and it's got cats on it. So it would be a big trend win, but I have to kind of see how it's gonna mix and match in with the other pieces I want to make this year. So while silhouette and fabrication definitely look at specific garment types, it's very like individual. Whereas I think looking at styling and kind of general aesthetic is gives like a bigger picture. I think for sewing, and that's so important to not just look at what's the individual garment I'm going to be making, but also like how am I going to actually wear that? How am I going to incorporate that into my closet? And how am I going to wear it in a way that makes me feel really creative while wearing it? Like the creativity is definitely in the making, of course, but then I also want that creativity reflected in how I am mixing and matching it with other things in my wardrobe. So I feel like I could definitely do a whole video on like fall aesthetics, and I think I will. So I'll just keep this section relatively short. The 2 that really stuck out to me that really resonates with my personal style, I think, are Western or equestrian boho. So really mixing these kind of like Western vibes or equestrian with like we're looking at like chore coats, barn coats, riding boots, flannels, or like workwear kind of shirts with yeah, like your classic boho vibe. So like long flowy skirts, billowy blouses, and finding that juxtaposition in a way that is like complementary but also giving like a fun edge to it. I think that is something that like I could play around with a ton of things I already have in my closet, plus like making maybe a few new items to get in that rotation. Because that definitely is something that mixes a lot of my style vibes already. So that's one I really am liking and want to play around with a little bit more. And then the second one, I was very much taken aback initially. And then I was like, oh, actually, this makes so much sense for like the broader cultural moment. And that is Medievalcore. And initially I was like, what is going on? How is this a thing? But really, like, it makes so much sense with what we're seeing in a lot of like museum collections right now. And we had Chapel Roan as Joan of Arc last year in music. Fantasy as a genre is the best-selling book genre right now, particularly romantasy, which I am very much into. Instead of just wearing like basic clothes, that you're embracing like aesthetics of other areas of your life. So that very much resonates with me with the like Western core that I've been dabbling in. for quite a while as like an American living in Europe, to kind of have that like sense of home a little bit in my clothes. That is like an emotional connection. And then to have like fantasy reading as like my other hobby then like reflected in my clothes is also a thing that resonates with me. And initially I was like, whoa, that is so out there. Like it feels costumey. Like you don't need to be, I don't need to be looking like I just got back from a Ren fair when I'm trying to do like school pickup or a grocery run. But actually, like it's a very adaptable style. And I was quite surprised at like kind of this scaling that you can do of like, yeah, you can go full costume, but you could also just pair like a long skirt, some boots, and a waistcoat together and have that vibe. So I am looking at some patterns of for like accessories, I think, because I think I have like the base garments, or at least some of the base garments already in my wardrobe, and then maybe doing like a little velvet purse or like a thicker belt with like some lacing details could really bring like a buildable, you could build that aesthetic into an everyday wardrobe and just have like little bits and pieces there of inspiration rather than full costume. So to recap, the 5 trends that are really inspiring my sewing plans are heritage blouses, statement skirts, fabrics that are kind of within that fall color palette, but particularly like green and burgundy this time around. Lots and lots of textures, whether that is in like woven blousey fabrics or like sheers are definitely catching my eye right now. Prints that have animals featured on them. Those are kind of the like core trends that I will be looking at in terms of like the individual garments that I'm looking at possibly making this season. And then looking at the how I'm going to be styling those, because I think that is a really important part of sewing. It's not to just be planning the creativity of making the individual thing, but then also looking at the creative expression in like how you're wearing it on a like expressive side. I think that that's very important, but also on a practical side, I really love the seamwork rule of like anytime you're looking at bringing in a new item, whether that's like buying it new, buying it thrifted, making it yourself, making sure that it goes with at least 3 items that already exist in your wardrobe helps to like prevent future wardrobe gaps, or like especially when you spend all the time like making something, then not having anything to wear it with is always such a bummer. So I've definitely adopted that rule, and it's made my getting dressed so much simpler and so much easier to make sure that when I bring something in, yeah, again, whether I like thrift it, buy it new, or spend all the time to make it myself, make sure that it actually goes with what I already have and that I can create outfits that feel like fun and expressive and creative with what I have. So that is definitely very important to me. Looking at these trends, that they're going to be practical and fit into my personal style as it is. And then I also have some wardrobe gaps I need to fill. I have some things that need to be replaced. So all of that is kind of in my like consideration bin, along with these trends that feel really inspiring to me. I also have some like practical elements to consider as well. So hopefully I will get wrapped up and actually like make some solid choices this coming week so that I can share my fall plans with you. I love this like planning and research phase of it, but I'm definitely itching to actually like get behind my sewing machine and start making the things and being able to wear them as we get into fall. So with that, I will sign off because this has probably been a very long video already. I will say I would love to hear from you, like where you fall on that trend spectrum, because I feel like there are very strong and kind of judgmental narratives in the sewing community, and no judgment coming from me, but I'd love to know where you fall on that like timeless to trendy scale or spectrum, and how that interacts with any like views on sustainability, personal style, expression, etc. Yeah, very, very curious because it's definitely been like a complicated topic for me and one that I've had to kind of work through. I'm pretty happy with where I'm sitting right now, somewhere in the middle, but I feel like the narrative is that like you're one or the other, and I just don't think that that's true. I think there's so much room for nuance and how we interact with sewing as a creative hobby and as a creative outlet like is so interesting to me. So let me know where you are on there. I'd also love to hear about what you are sewing or making or excited about. If you're in the like gathering stage, looking for fabrics or patterns, or still looking for inspiration going for next season, let me know. You can either do that like down below in the comments. I love reading it there, or you can go over and find me on Instagram. You can even send me pictures of what you're working on because I was gonna say I'm very nosy, but really I just love this community and I love connecting with other folks that love to sew and that are creative. So let me know. Yeah, go find me, send me what you're working on. And until next time, I hope you have the best week of sewing and that you are inspired and productive, or that you are like relaxed, whatever it is that you need from your hobby this week. I hope you find that. So until next time, happy sewing. Bye.